Hello, thank you for watching. This is Jackson Bleacher's college football best bets for week 11. It's Thursday. It's about lunchtime. It means week 11 is here. We got college football tonight. And then after this weekend, there's really only 2 weekends left of regular season college football. Last week, we learned a lot. We already have the SEC championship game set. It's Alabama and Georgia. Alabama boat raced LSU in Baton Rouge, and like we said, Georgia took care of Kentucky easily in Lexington. We also saw Texas get eliminated from playoff contention last week, and that leaves Oklahoma and West Virginia as the last 2 Big 12 teams that can make the playoffs. We also saw Washington State squeak past California to keep the Pac-12's playoff hope alive. Well, last week, if you watched, we tried something a little different with our picks, and I think it turned out well. Early in the week, we locked in Georgia -10 and Syracuse -4.5. Both of those cashed easily. And then I decided to wait till Saturday on a couple of other games to see which way the line moved. And that ended up paying off for the Texas A&M game. It went up to A&M +4 at Auburn right before kickoff. Aggies should have won it outright. They were cruising most of the game, fell apart down the stretch. Auburn came back and stole a win by 4, so we got the push, but that was just, it wasn't a beat, but it was a bad push. A&M was in control the entire game and just kind of crapped the bed down the stretch. The other one hurt. That was Washington State -7 over California. That was the late game. Wazoo was the only team in the country to cover every game this year until Saturday. They scored a late game winner with like 30 seconds left in the game, but they missed the extra point. And that missed extra point is the reason we lost. So we went 2-1-1 last weekend. It's not exactly something to throw a party about, but it's not bad. With the 2-1-1 week, we're 21-13-2 on the season. We've had a pretty good year, so we'll get started with the week 11 picks. So we're gonna go back to Washington State. We got burned last week by the missed extra point, but Washington State -5 at Colorado. They've been a covering machine under Mike Leach. Their air raid offense is one of the most fun offenses to watch in all college football. Everybody knows that Tua Tagovailoa is going to run away with the Heisman, but if you haven't watched it, Gardner Minshew II is making a serious case for being one of the finalists in New York. Minshew is a graduate transfer from East Carolina, but before that, he played JUCO football at Northwest Mississippi Community College. He's been lighting up Pac-12 defenses all season, and then he even orchestrated a game-winning touchdown drive last Saturday night against Cal. But because he plays at Washington State, he's not getting as much publicity as he probably should be. And then you add that to the fact that this will be his first and only year as a Power 5 quarterback, and it's easy to see why many people outside the Pac-12, or really East Carolina too, have never heard of him. If you haven't had the chance to watch him play yet, you need to tune in this Saturday afternoon because he's fun to watch. In the newest playoff rankings, the Cougs did not move at all. Even though Washington State won and LSU got hammered, the committee did not let Wazoo slip past LSU in the new rankings. And while I do completely agree with the committee's decision not to punish the Tigers too bad for losing to the best team in college football, I am a little surprised to see them at number 7 instead of number 8. I thought Washington State would slide past the Tigers, but I guess not. Wazoo's a 5-point favorite at Colorado this weekend, and that looked like a huge game just a couple weeks ago. The Buffs had a really good start to the season. Mike McIntyre's team started off 5-0, but has completely fallen apart over the last month. It all started with a bad loss at USC, and then it hit rock bottom with the home loss to Oregon State 2 weeks ago. Oregon State is one of the worst teams in college football, and it doesn't matter how, down and out Mike McIntyre's team was, that's an inexcusable loss. So sure, they have a chance to get it turned around, but do you really think it will happen against Mike Leach? I mean, there's no way. Mike Leach is too good of a coach. His team is in a huge situation. They're going to be ready to play. And I think the biggest reason you could argue for not taking Washington State this week is because they could be due for a letdown game. And I did think that's a fair point. Coming off the emotional win last week, but I think that was actually their letdown game. I think barely beating Cal at home would have been it was or at least should have been a big wake up call for the Cougs, and I think that goes a long way in keeping Wazoo from overlooking Colorado this weekend. And even if they do start slow, they're only a 5-point favorite, which means if they win by a touchdown, they cover. And we all know how fast Washington State can put points on the board. So I think Wazoo as a 5-point favorite. It's an easy one. And then I also have Cal plus 5.5 at USC. So we'll stay in the Pac-12 for this one. And the thought process behind this is really simple. Cal just took a really good Washington State team to the wire in Pullman, so they can definitely stay within 5.5 points of a bad USC team. California's had a little bit of an up and down season. There's been one key stat that has determined most of their games this year, and that would be turnovers. When the Golden Bears take care of the football, they have a ton of success, but when they don't take care of the football, they lose. Cal's 5-4, but 3 of those 4 losses were back-to-back-to-back, and that rough stretch came at the end of September through the middle of October. But they have bounced back nicely since then. Even with 4 losses, only one of them is a bad loss, and that was when UCLA got them 37-7 in Berkeley on October 13th. That one is completely inexcusable. They did lose a game at Arizona too, which at the time didn't seem great, but that's not nearly as bad of a loss now as it was then. Arizona's actually tied for first in the Pac-12 South with USC and who else? And Utah. And then, so there's a 3-way tie at 4-3 for first place in the Pac-12 South. And then you have Arizona State sitting just a half game back with 3 games left in the season. The Trojans still have a great chance of playing in the Pac-12 championship, but let's not act like they're having a great season. The Pac-12 as a whole, especially the South, is the weakest of the Power 5 conferences, and USC is barely above 500 in those games. If it weren't for a terrible call that went their way against Washington State, the Trojans would easily be 3-4 in conference play right now. And USC has one good win this year. Again, it was against Washington State. But as I just said, that game has a huge asterisk next to it. Trojans got blown out by a down Stanford team and a decent Texas team. Clay Helton is lucky the Pac-12 is so bad right now, or he probably would not even have a job. But with the conference being down, Helton has a chance to sneak his underachieving USC team into the Pac-12 championship and then return for another season. And I'm not in love with California football or anything, but them as a 5-point dog is just too tempting. Cal isn't bad. USC is terrible. Take Cal plus 5.5. So then we're in the same situation as we were in last week. I locked those 2 in already, and I usually try to have 3 by Thursday and then keep my eye on some as we move towards Saturday, but they're just the lines. I don't really love too many of the lines this week, so I haven't locked in a third game yet. I am keeping my eye on 2 of them though, and that would be Houston -4 against Temple and MTSU -14.5 at UTEP. I think I will probably end up taking Houston as a 4-point favorite, but I would love to see it drop to 3. I don't know if I can trust Middle Tennessee to win a road game by double digits, but I would be very tempted to take the Blue Raiders if the line drops to 13.5 or lower, because MTSU has it rolling right now and UTEP is terrible. So, I mean, I could add more. These are just the 2 I'm watching right now. So, definitely be sure to follow at Jackson Bleacher on Twitter. I'll put the link in the description of the video, and I'll update any kind of picks I add between now and kickoff on Saturday. So just to run through it one more time, the 2 I have locked in right now is Washington State -5 at Colorado, and then California plus 5.5 at USC. I'm also watching Houston -4 against Temple, and Middle Tennessee -14.5 at UTEP. But thank you for watching. I'll update anything on the Twitter, and I will talk to you next week.